Hello and welcome to Discite. I am Zen, your IELTS instructor, and today we're going to talk about IELTS Writing Task 2. Now, IELTS Writing Task 2 is common. Both the academic students and the general students have to go for IELTS Writing Task 2. So, what is it that we need to do in IELTS Writing Task 2? You have to write an essay, and you have 40 minutes to do so. And you have to write at least 250 words. When I say at least, it's the minimum. The highest is around 290. Don't go for 300 because if you write 50 words more than the minimum, you're going to lose 0.5 bands. And if you write 100 more, you could lose up to a band. What does it mean? If your writing score is 7, it will go down to 6 if you had 350 words or more. So stick between 250 to 290. Okay, now what is Writing Task 2 all about? It is about giving words to your ideas, your views, your opinions, but in a way that you deliver more in few words, but you prove your point explicitly. Okay, now there's many types of IELTS Writing Task 2 essays that you're going to get, but what I'm going to give you is the difference between the question and the statement, and it will explain you what the question is all about, what type of question is that. Now you need to understand the difference between the statement and the question. If you do, then it'll be easier for you, because a statement tells you more or less what the essay is about, but the question actually dictates the structure of the writing. How is it? Let's have a look at this writing. Many children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. Both schools and parents are equally responsible for solving this problem. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Now, here is your IELTS essay or IELTS Writing Task 2. It has a statement and it has a question. Now, what part is the statement? Please have a look. Many children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. Both schools and parents are equally responsible for solving this problem. This is the statement. To what extent do you agree or disagree is the question. So the statement tells you what we're going to talk about, and the question dictates what the structure is going to be like. So to what extent do you agree or disagree? So what are we going to do here? We're going to choose to what extent do we agree or disagree. So this is an agree, disagree, one-sided topic. Okay, so up to this point, I think it's clear. Now, the statement tells you many children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. This is given. This is a fact. So we're not going to change that. It will help us in our writing, especially in the introduction. Then, both schools and parents are equally responsible for solving this problem. Now, this is something which is debatable. Why? Both schools and parents are equally responsible for solving this problem, equally, 50-50. So, some people may agree, yes, exactly. They would completely agree with that, and they would say, yes, schools and parents are equally responsible. But sometimes, people would say, no, it's parents who are more responsible, or it's the other way. The teachers or the school are more responsible. So this is where the debate is, and this is where your personal opinion comes in. So you need to sit down and think about it. This is what we'll do in the planning part. Now, when you plan, you already have the statement. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at schools, and then you're going to have a look at the parents or school. You can choose either one first and look at the ideas, look at the opinions that you have, look at the views that you have about those things, and plan. When you're planning, what do? You don't sit down and start writing, no. You brainstorm and get the ideas on a sheet of paper. For every idea, you just write 1 or 2 words. That's it. So if you have like 3 or 4 ideas for one side and 3 or 4 for the other, that would be ideal. Now, many children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. It's a fact, so we don't need to argue on that. Both schools and parents are equally responsible for solving this problem. This is the thing. So are they equally responsible? So what are parents responsible for? What are schools responsible for? If we pay attention to this part, we'd be more in a position to actually tell what we believe. So you could have your inclination towards one side or the other. Okay, now let's go on to the things that we need to do before we start writing, before we even start planning. So what are we looking at? What are the key words in this question? Children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. Unhealthy. Because this word is there, we're not going to use the exact same word in our essay, so we need some vocabulary for that. So let's have a look at some of the words for unhealthy. We could use the words like unproductive, unhygienic, detrimental, dangerous, toxic, or injurious. Okay, now that you've seen some of the words for unhealthy lifestyle. So what is lifestyle? It's a way of living, the way we go through our lives, the way we spend our lives. Okay, the method of living. Okay, so you need some synonyms for that. So you prepare the synonyms in advance and then you go on. The next thing that we have is we got educational institutions. Both schools and parents are equally responsible. So let's have a look at some of the words that we could use instead of school. Of course, you could use the words like educational institutions. You could use the words like alma maters, or you could also use the words like center of learning, academy, college, school, university. All these words are synonyms of the word school. Now, schools and parents are equally responsible. So instead of parents, what could we say? Parents, mother and father, father, mother, biological guardians, guardians. All right, all these words could be used instead of the word parents. Now, you could Google a few more and use them as well. So in the preparation part, you get the vocabulary from wherever you can because you're preparing for your test now. During the test, you'll not have this luxury. So prepare now. Get all those synonyms ready. Okay, now the other thing is responsible. So let's have a look at some of the words that we can use instead of the word responsible. The first one that comes to my mind is accountable, answerable. Okay, you could also say to blame. They are to blame for that. They are the people behind. They should be held accountable. They should be guilty for that. They should be culpable of or blameworthy. So the onus should be on them. So you could use all these words instead of responsible. Now that we've got the vocabulary sorted, we'll move on to the planning part. Okay, so what do we do in the planning part? Because we don't know what our opinion is. For example, in my personal case, I'm more inclined towards parents taking more responsibility. Some people may go with the schools. So why am I going with parents, for example? I believe they're biological guardians, so they're responsible. Second thing, biological guardian. This is my first reason. Second reason is genetics and understanding. Since they've had the child since birth, so they understand different things that the kid does and the way he behaves under different circumstances. So they are in a better position to actually mend those ways. Third reason I have is finances. Whatever the kid does, even the choice of school is made by the parents. So it's not the kid who should be held responsible for what sort of school does he go to, because it's the parents who decide. And whatever they decide, they are the ones who finance it. So the kid can't have, for example, junk food unless the parents pay for it. So wherever the finances are coming from, they should be really responsible. Okay, and then in the longer term, they are the ones who are the beneficiaries of the good things that the kid is going to do in life, not the school. Okay, now on the flip side, if you look at the school, you can talk about time. A kid spends about 6 hours at school, and then when he comes home, he spends another hour or two with a book. So around 8 hours of active time in a day is spent at school or in educational activities. So I think they should take some responsibility, at least a lot of it. because parents these days don't have time because the expenses are so high. They need to work a lot. So schools can't run away and say, like, this is not our responsibility to work on the character building of the kid or his personality or the things that he's doing which are damaging his character or his personality. Time. The second one is advertisement. Have you ever seen the advertisement of a school? They advertise so much that they're going to work on his academics, they're going to work on his personality, they're going to work on his spoken skills, they're going to make him confident, they're going to make him a useful citizen, they're going to make him a successful person for the future, they're going to make him a leader. When you advertise so much, they demand a fee for everything that they advertise, and the parents pay for it, willingly or unwillingly, they do. So if you demand some cash or money for something that you're going to offer, you must deliver that. Otherwise, you're letting your customer or your client down. So I think this is the responsibility of the school. So we talked about time, we talked about advertisement. Third is the diversity of people who come to school. So at home, the kid is learning from just his parents or maybe close relatives or neighbors. But at school, there are like 20 kids in the class, and they all come from different social, economic, or even ethnic backgrounds. So there's so much the kid can learn from interacting with those. So this diversity that he has at school is not available at home. So when you go out in the community, you see a lot of people of different types. So school is a good example. School is a good place where school is more like a lab where you're going to see what you're going to do in the future in advance. So I think it's really important that school takes the onus, takes the responsibility, or is held accountable. Now, is it in the same structure as the parents? I don't think so. So I've done the planning part. Now my plan's ready, and I still believe like parents are more responsible. So how am I going to structure this particular thing? Okay, now that you got your planning done, we'll move on to the writing part of it. The first thing that you're going to do is to write an introduction. So what do you do in the introduction? You already have the ideas. So you need to paraphrase the statement. So the first part was, children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. Unhygienic and unproductive ways of living of our young ones are a matter of grave concern. This is something that's a paraphrasing of children these days have an unhealthy lifestyle. Both schools and parents are equally responsible for solving this problem. You need to paraphrase this statement as well. And then the question is, to what extent do you agree or disagree? So first thing, paraphrase. Second part, answer the question. And the third part in introduction is critical balance. Some people may not agree with your opinion. So what you can say is, though I believe it's the parents who should be primarily held accountable for fixing this matter or this drawback, some people may disagree with me and they would find schools more answerable. This is critical balance, where you give your opinion, but at the same time, you acknowledge that there can be a different opinion, which can be different and could be opposite even to yours. So for an academic, it's really important. Now, after that, you move on to the body. So what do you do in the body? You have the ideas ready. You write those ideas down in like you got 1 or 2 minutes, like the most important idea that you have, start with that. Write it in the most beautiful way that you can, and then explain that idea and pen down an example. So what do we do? For example, like if you look at our planning when we're talking about parents, for example, because I am more in favor of parents being more responsible. My first idea was they are responsible biological guardians. They understand the genetics, and the third, finances. So I would put these ideas down into something, into a sentence or two, and then I'd explain this thing a little bit and quote an example of anybody, for example, in the society who goes to school. Where do the finances come from? The understanding of the genetics. Then you move on to the second part, where you're going to talk about the other side of it, which is the opposite to what you think. Schools. So you have the ideas there as well. It's the time, it's the advertisement, it's the diversity. You talk about all three things explain them a little bit, and then quote an example of what actually happens in a school. Where do the kids come from? And try not to talk about your personal experience unless you're asked to. Sometimes the question says, quote examples from your personal experience. So in that case, yes, go with the personal examples. If that is not asked, try to use a more generalized example than your personal one. The last part is the conclusion. So what do you do in the conclusion? You start with the conclusion sentence. First part, conclusion sentence. What is it like? Analyzing the arguments and examples quoted above, I've reached a conclusion that here you are going to reiterate your opinion that you've given right at the beginning. So try to write your opinion in a different way. And that's it, because this is more like a verdict and you don't have to add anything into it, because what's the point of calling it a conclusion when you are explaining things in it? If you explain things, it becomes body. So nothing else is required. Introduction. What does it have then? Let's go through it again. First thing, paraphrase the statement. Second thing, answer the question. Third thing, critical balance. Then you move on to the body, paragraph 1. Ideas, explanation, example. Body paragraph 2, opposite ideas, explanation, example, exactly. Conclusion, a conclusion sentence, and the verdict. That's the end of it. I hope you've learned how to write an essay today. I'll give you an example at the end of it. You can have a look at it. This is just an example essay written by a student, but it's not bad. So if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Bye-bye.